the officers, or I guess later today or whenever you address, I know you've addressed them before, but now as officially chief, what that first message would be?
Sure, so we're going to stick to our 4 focus areas that I've spoken about already. Crime prevention, community, culture, and career development. And in the culture piece, the biggest part of that is accountability. And that accountability starts with me, and it's going to resonate through the entire leadership and eventually through the entire organization. We submitted our application today for ABLE, active bystandership for law enforcement. And of course, that's not a panacea, it's just one piece. But it's going to help give our police officers and the leadership the tools they need to really hold each other accountable. And I talk a lot about critical loyalty, and that's about having the courage to come forward when you see potential wrongdoing, when you see potential mistake, and stop it before it occurs.
And Chief, congratulations to you and good morning. One of the things that I just can't help but think to ask is, considering so much crime that you left behind in New Orleans from the area, so I can speak to it, did at any point you figure that Knoxville might be a city where you can actually make a change and make a difference versus the contention that you had in New Orleans?
Well, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think I could make a difference, right? I was very, very deliberate in selecting where I wanted to continue my career. And if you look at the work that we did in New Orleans from 2016 to 2019, we had the lowest number of murders really in modern times. And the tactics and the strategies that we used to bring that crime reduction to New Orleans absolutely can be replicated with some augmentation in Knoxville. And I really feel that this is a place where together we can be tremendously successful in reducing crime.
What specifically will ABLE do? What do they do when you join them, and what exactly do they provide?
So what will happen is there's 10 standards. So if you go on a website, there's 10 standards that we'll have to meet first. One standard particularly is a policy that prohibits retaliation within an organization. And what that does is that really gives our police officers, when they do come forward about mistakes and misconduct, to make sure that there's not retaliation by their peers or by leadership of the organization. So we will be submitting our application to join ABLE today. We had to submit 4 letters, one from the mayor, one from myself, and from 2 community groups. And then the next part is going to be aligning our existing policies with the 10 ABLE standards to make sure that we meet those standards. And I believe many of our policies are already aligned with those standards, so that's not going to really be that much of a lift. And then what we'll do is we'll send police officers to go to a train-the-trainer event, where then once they complete that train-the-trainer event, they'll be able to come back and start the long process of training our police officers on active bystandership for law enforcement. And the reason it takes so long is we do it in really small groups. The ideal class size is around 10 people per class. And the reason we want to do that, it really needs to be a very intimate setting. Half the class is the science on bystandership, and the other half is role play to actually teach our police officers, just like we would when we go through a firearms drill. We want to develop that muscle memory. We want to develop that muscle memory on intervention as well. So that process is going to take a while, but it's going to be a journey that I really believe is going to pay off for us.
Diversity has been one challenge within KPD. What's your plan to recruit and retain officers of color kind of all the way up?
Sure, so there's absolutely no secret that we need to do a much better job of recruiting people of color to the Knoxville Police Department, and also recruiting more women to the Knoxville Police Department as well. So I think a lot of this really is going to start with some of the things I've spoken about already. People want to join a winning team. People want to join a team that they feel that they're going to be respected and that it's going to be a healthy environment for them to operate under. So that's what the culture change, I think, is so important. To the first piece, the foundation is creating that environment where a person of color, where a female officer is going to feel really comfortable working. So that's going to be the first part. The next part is going to be a real robust recruiting effort to recruit in general, but also specifically recruit people of color and also more women to the organization as well. And the pay raise that was recently passed, I think is really going to go a long way to help with that, because we all know recruiting in law enforcement across the country is so competitive.
Mayor Kincannon said in her opening remarks that she predicts in the years to come that she will be able to look back and see positive change that you have created. What does that positive change, positive impact look like to you?
Sure, and I think it goes back to those 4 focus areas that I've spoken about, right? So crime reduction. So it's my number 1 priority. Everything else I've talked about is very important. Reducing crime, specifically violent crime in the city of Knoxville, is going to be our most important challenge. So I think you're going to see that. The second piece, community partnerships. So community policing is not just going to a picnic. It's not just going to a community event. I've been doing a lot of that, already, even before I've been sworn in. But it's really about this philosophy of partnerships, and that goes into the third piece of culture. Creating a culture of accountability, a culture of collaboration, a culture of partnerships. That's what I want to see in the years going forward. And I think the last piece really speaks for itself, the career development. I want to really work hard to mentor and develop the future leaders, to make sure the next police chief comes from inside our ranks, and also for people who don't want to go into leadership, to help them become the best investigator, the best traffic officer, whatever they want to do with their career, to make them be the best individual possible at that job. That's what that's going to look like.
Speaking of leadership, you've got 2 deputy chief positions to fill, third later on. But do you have a timeline as far as how long you're going to take to assess and meet and get to know the current leadership and see how to fill those positions? Do you have a time frame for that?
So, not specifically. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. So I am going to sit down and meet with every this week, every captain except the one that's out of town, and Chief Glass this week, and do an interview process with them. Once that's done, I'm actually going to sit down and meet with every lieutenant in the organization. I think there's 43 lieutenants, so that's going to take a little while. Once that's done, that'll have given me enough time to evaluate the organization, evaluate the personnel, and then we'll start to make decisions on I think the leadership is going to be. It's not something I'm going to rush into. It's going to be a very important decision for me, so I'm not going to rush into that. I certainly don't want to make that decision until I have a chance to meet with all of the lieutenants, captains, and chiefs in the department.
Will you utilize your new liberties in being able to hire outside the department for this position?
So, I certainly don't want to commit myself, but I'm going to give the team here in Knoxville every opportunity to compete for those positions. I really, if possible, I really would like to hire from within, but I don't want to commit myself right now.
What's the number 1 public safety issue in Knoxville right now, and how do you plan to tackle that?
So I think violent crime. There's many different public safety problems going on, but violent crime is going to be the most important thing that we focus on. If you look at the homicides in Knoxville since 2016, they've steadily risen, and that's a trend that we absolutely have to turn. So what we're going to do, we're going to use data analytics to really take a hard look at everything our team is doing to reduce violent crime. How do we deploy? How are we staffed? How are we using overtime? How are we using the resources that we have right now to successfully attack violent crime? Every moment our police officers are out there on the street, we need to make sure we're getting the most out of that. So we're going to be looking at efficiencies first, data management, and deployment. That's going to be one of the first things. And as we move along further, we'll advance into some other, violent crime strategies. That's going to be the first thing I'm going to be looking at.
2 more questions.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, I was going to say.
So I'm excited to be here. So it's been a long transition process, right? And I'm a high energy person. So from the day I was announced to today, it's been rough not having a lot of stuff to do. That's why the week after I was announced, I spent that entire week in Knoxville on vacation, right? Meeting the officers, meeting members of the community, really learning about the city. So I am eager to get started, and I ended my remarks today with "Let's get to work." So as soon as I leave you today and I go shake a few more hands, I'm going back to the office. I'm getting to work. I'm excited to get started.
How's the family settling in?
They love Knoxville. So we've been trying to get to this part of the country for a really long time. So we're finally moved in and settled in, and we're really super excited to be here. I'm looking forward to having temperatures a little bit cooler than where I come from, and hopefully no hurricanes reach this far up here.
Yeah.